father, or fortune. She broke years of silence just to claim her inheritance. My daughter blocked me after the divorce without listening to my side of the story. 8 years later, she calls me for her wedding and wants my money. I believed we could reunite, but all she wanted was my inheritance. Sebastian, 65, lived a completely different life following his divorce from his 56-year-old wife Teresa. At an age when he was only 57 years old, she had him painted as the villain of their story. She left him, fighting with his reputation, while losing the most precious relationship of his life, with Abigail. The last time they spoke was the day she took her mom's side, cutting all ties with him that related back to the family. 8 years had flown by, and Sebastian had sought at all costs to move on, channeling most of his time into his career and family, the latter now constituting an ailing mother who lived with Alzheimer's. He had hoped that finally a reconciliation would be possible, but all efforts at trying to reach her ended in silence. Until that day, when the unexpected happened. He liked one of those afternoon rains when his phone suddenly rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Reluctant, he answered. "Dad, it's Abigail," he heard a shaky but familiar voice say from the other end. He could hardly believe it. After 9 years, almost a decade of silence, his daughter finally called. Abigail explained she saw on Facebook that her grandmother had died and just wanted to check in with me, speaking softly. Sebastian is taken by joy and trepidation at the same time. Is this a legitimate revisit of a bond, or just one more manipulation? They agreed to have dinner at Sebastian's place, and as the day neared, he couldn't help but feel the rise of nervous excitement inside him. Was the chasm of years to be bridged? Would she understand his part of the story? As Abigail entered, he barely recognized her. She had grown into a beautiful young woman. The air held the pang of what had happened back then. They started talking, and there was this awkwardness between them, as if an uninvited guest had come. Finally, Sebastian couldn't help but ask in a shaky voice, "Why did you block me all those years ago? You never even heard my side of the story." Something in Abigail's eyes shifted then, and her eyes shone with guilt in one swift second. "I was too young. Mom made me believe you didn't care. I regret how things turned out," she said, trembling. Sebastian had wanted to believe her, that the spark would flare again. They had talked and talked, reminiscing about better times, such as when Abigail pulled out the bomb. "I have got to talk to you about something," she said, and the light in her voice turned grave. Sebastian steeled himself. "What is it?" "I recently got engaged and could use financial help for the wedding. I thought since Grandma's gone, maybe there would be an inheritance." The words cut through him like a knife. He felt a wave of nausea sweep over him. All those years apart, was this the reason she reached out? The hope he had clung on to crumbled to dust. "So, you only came back for the money?" he asked, incredulity written across his face. "No, it's not just about that," she protested. "I want to rebuild our relationship, I promise." Sebastian's heart galloped while he worked out what she was saying. "If it's about the money, then maybe we shouldn't push this any further," he said firmly and still, though his stomach churned. Abigail looked crestfallen. "But that's not fair. I at least deserve some of the inheritance," she cried, her mask of innocence discarded. Anger resonated in her voice, something that sparked something in Sebastian. "You were never supposed to inherit anything, Abigail. You cut me out of your life. If you hadn't blocked me, you would have been a part of it," he shot back, angry and betrayed. But the more they argued, the more the truth about their strained relationship came to the fore. Abigail's panicked defenses fell apart. "You're just like Mom, selfish and uncaring," she spat, the truth finally out. At that moment, he knew how deep the wounds had run. This wasn't going to be the reunion he so wished for. If you think money is what binds us, then maybe we shouldn't have a relationship at all, he said, the weight of their past crashing down on him. Abigail stormed out, leaving Sebastian in his astonishment. Outside, the empty house seemed to ring with unsaid words, the love they would never rebuild. Days passed, and weeks became friends for Sebastian's comfort, who agreed that he had done the right thing. One night, though, his ex-wife Teresa showed up at his door. "We need to talk," she said, her eyes concerned. "I hear from Abigail," she confided, to salve the hurts of their shared past. "She's in pain, Sebastian. She called me too." Sebastian felt torn between his anger and longing. He wanted to believe that Teresa was telling the truth, but the pain from their history continued to stay above his head. "Should I care? She only wanted me for my money," he snarled. "Perhaps she didn't know how much she missed you until it was too late. We all make mistakes," Teresa responded. Her voice was softer now. There followed a few crazy days of confusion. Sebastian's heart wrestled between anger and the sad, eager need for family. Then he got another call from Abigail. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. First, finally reconciliation dangled before him, but he was in doubt, being eaten by his insides. Was this another way of manipulating him, or did she finally get ready to rebuild? Sebastian took a deep breath, drawing from the hope he had felt the first time they spoke. "Okay, let's meet," he replied, yielding to give her one last chance. His heart raced in anticipation and fear as he prepared for their meeting. Was this the reunion that finally healed them both, or was it the one that tore them asunder once and for all? Finally, I was sitting down to talk, and the air was thick with unsaid words. They sat facing each other, ready to confront the past that haunted them. Still, as Sebastian gazed into Abigail's eyes, he knew some hurts would take years to overcome. Sebastian said to his daughter Abigail, "Actually, because of the resentment your grandmother held against me and our family, she left me out of the inheritance, and we won't be receiving anything from her estate. I can help with your engagement and wedding, but I can't afford anything too extravagant. I can support something modest, and I need you to tell your fiancé that you're in contact with me. I'd also like us to be closer and see each other more often." At that moment, he knew that longing would not be enough to rebuild what they had. Most of all, trust, honesty, and acceptance needed to come around regarding their hurt. The tears they both cried through their words were not for what was lost, but for what still could be, for a shared future in case they both decided upon it. In sharing their feelings, a little spark of hope lit in Sebastian, but that gnawing feeling that had sat at the back of his mind, he could not remove. Would they ever really reconnect, or was this only a passing phase of lucidity? Days passed, and Sebastian was on his toes, awaiting any semblance of results. And then, Abigail finally texted, "Dad, I talked to Derek. It was hard, but I told him how I felt." His heart started racing as he read on. Did he say? Didn't take it so well. He got furious, and now I'm scared about what this means for us. Derek told me, your father didn't leave you any inheritance, and whatever help he's offering is useless. The kind of wedding your dad wants to have, we can handle ourselves, so we don't need his help. And you're not allowed to see him. I told him, he's my father, and I didn't want him for his money. I want to stay in touch with him. He hit me and said, you're not going to see your father. You didn't have a father before the engagement, and now, after all this time, you suddenly do. Sebastian's stomach fell, and with that he felt the storm brewing itself into fear for his daughter's well-being consuming him. Are you okay? I'm trying to be strong, I just need some time to think. He felt helpless, as if he wanted to shield her from the fallout. He knew he needed to give her space and let her know he was there for her. Whatever happened. As days receded into a week, he was filled with the feeling that he had caught himself in a noxious web, an anxiety he could scarcely name, an anxiety that would bear him down to the void where fear propelled him. Exhausted from toil, the hands-off look on his mind, it would not be dislodged from his mind. He sat on the couch one evening, staring at the wall, when his phone buzzed with a message from Abigail. His heart racing, he opened it. "Dad, can we talk? I need your help." Panic surged, but he immediately texted back, "Of course." Where? They were to meet again at the cafe. As he reached it, he saw Abigail sitting in the corner, worried. "Hello, Father," she said, low and almost inaudible. Sebastian slid into the chair across from her. His heartbeat hastened. "What is wrong? You look disturbed." "I don't know how to say this, but Derek and I are having serious problems," she said, after her eyes began to well up in tears. "He got angry when I tried talking with him, and things just escalated." Sebastian felt his anger rise in her defense as he asked, "What do you mean by escalated?" "Yelled at me, and I wasn't expecting it to go that way. I thought he would understand," she said, her voice shaking. "But now I feel so lost." "Abigail, you deserve so much better than that. Nobody should ever make you feel afraid," he said, trying not to raise his voice too loud. "I know, but I love him, Daddy. I just don't know what to do," she pleaded with her eyes. Sebastian reached across the table for her hands. "You have to put your well-being first. Love shouldn't bring with it fear or resentment. I'm scared to leave him, but I also can't continue to live like this," she confessed in a shaking voice. Sebastian had a lump in his throat. "It is okay to be scared, but you must make the right choice. I'll support you no matter what." While talking, the bond between them slowly started growing more solid, but there was still something in the air. Sebastian is haunted by the fear of losing Abigail once again. He does covet a second chance to right his wrongs, but in the same breath, he knows their journey is far from over. They parted company that day, Sebastian leaving with hope and trepidation. He felt grateful for the connection they'd started to rebuild, but the uncertainty of Abigail's relationship hung over him like a heavy cloud. Days passed and weeks passed. Sebastian struggled at first to concentrate on his mother's nursing and his work. His mind continually strayed to Abigail, praying to hear from her and know she was all right. Then, one evening, Teresa called. "Sebastian, it is about Abigail," she said almost seriously. His heart sank. "What has happened?" "She is with Derek again, and he has been getting increasingly volatile. I think she is in over her head," Teresa confided, a tinge of worry in her voice. Sebastian felt his face pale. "What do you mean, volatile?" "He's been controlling, Sebastian. She did tell me that he accused her of lying about how she felt, and threatened to cut her off from everyone if she ever talked with you again." Anger welled up in him. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. I have to do something." "I think you should reach out to her, but be careful. She might not want to hear from you if Derek's around," advised Teresa. Abandoned, Sebastian started pacing in the living room, balancing the urge to protect his daughter and the fear of repercussions from trying to intervene. I cannot do nothing and just sit around." Awake all night, Sebastian knew he had to be confronted about what was happening. He texted Abigail, "We need to talk. I'm concerned about you." The response came nearly instantly, "I'm fine, Dad, just busy." He felt a pang of disappointment. "Please, Abigail, I need to know you're safe." She didn't say anything back, and the silence chewed at him. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. The weekend he drove to Abigail's apartment, a determination running through his veins. He pulled outside, noticing Derek's car in the driveway. His heart ran with anxiety, but he pushed the door open and made for the entrance, his steps heavy with hesitation. He rapped on the door, his breath catching in his throat. A moment later, Abigail opened it, surprise flashing across her face. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Sebastian's heart bled at the sight of her. "I'm here to see you. We need to talk about Derek." Abigail's face went cold. "I'm fine, Dad. You shouldn't have come." "Abigail, please," he implored as he stepped inside. "I'm worried about you. I just want to help." Meanwhile, Derek appeared from the hallway, his expression visibly turning from confusion to outrage in a split second. "What the hell is he doing here, Abigail?" The air grew thick with tension. "I came to talk with my daughter. You don't have to be involved," he said, trying to keep his voice even. Derek pressed closer, the eyes narrowed. "This isn't any of your business, old man. You need to back off." "Perhaps you need to listen to your daughter rather than try to control her," Sebastian fired back, words tumbling out before he could catch them from his mouth. "Do not speak with me in that tone of voice," Derek threatened in a low, ominous tone. "Enough! This is not how a loving partner behaves," Abigail finally shrieked, surprising both men. Sebastian felt his heart shatter at her words. "But, Abigail, just go, please," she wept, her voice cracking. He looked at her, desperation clawing at his chest. "I only want to help you." "By what? Telling me how to live my life? I can handle this," she shouted, tears coursing down her face. Then, in that instant, Sebastian knew he was losing her again. A cold wave seemed to wash over him. "I just want you to be safe," he whispered. At that, he turned and walked out, defeated. The door closed behind him with that finality that lingered in his heart. Days passed, then weeks. And between them, that heavy silence. Sebastian felt shut out and wished somehow he could reach Abigail, but he knew full well that he had to give her the space to make her choices. Then, one afternoon, Teresa texted, "Have you heard from Abigail? I think things have escalated." Panic set in. "What do you mean?" "She hasn't returned my calls and I feel bad. Can you check on her?" Sudden dread washed over Sebastian. He leapt up, grabbed his keys and raced out the door, heart pounding. Abigail's apartment, his stomach was knotted with anxiety. Knocking urgently upon the door, he received no response. Rising panic, he shoved the door open, praying she was all right. The apartment was dark and silent. "Abigail!" he yelled into its emptiness. He went through the living room and into his bedroom, doing a quick search, though his heart was racing. And then, of course, when he entered the bedroom, all his worst fears were confirmed. Abigail was lying on the bed. She was pale, with dark circles framing her eyes. The room was in disarray, and an expression of anguish had washed over her features. "Dad!" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Sebastian hastily went to her side, kneeling beside the bed. "What's happened? Are you all right?" "I messed up," she said, tears in her eyes. "Derek, he hurt me." A surge of anger and fear ran through him. "What do you mean, hurt you? How?" "Got angry. I tried to leave, and he pushed me. Derek hit me and told me, 'You're a poor, pathetic person with no parents, and if I kill you right here, no one would even know.' He beat me up like I was nothing and said, 'You're not going to see your father or beg him for money.' I didn't know what to do," she confessed in a shaking voice. Sebastian felt helpless. "We need to get you help. You don't have to stay with him." "No, I can't," she shook her head. "I'm scared, Dad. He said he'd ruin everything if I left." Sebastian felt his heart break for her. "I won't let him hurt you anymore. You deserve to be free from this." He saw the fear in her face as he helped her sit up. "You don't understand. It's not that easy." "Then let me help you. We'll figure this out together," he pressed on, his voice steady though chaos swirled inside him. Abigail was crying, tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at him, her eyes shining so vulnerably. I want to believe that, Dad. I really do." Sebastian clutched her hand as if in determination. "We can make a fresh start. You shall never have to go back to him." As soon as they began to converse, the bond that had been rebuilding bit by bit started to grow once again. Sebastian talking about his regrets and hopes, Abigail about her fears and dreams. But just as they were getting closer, the door burst open. Derek stormed in, rage distorting his features. "What the hell is going on here?" Abigail's eyes filled with terror. "Derek, please." Sebastian stepped forward protectively in front of her. "You need to leave. This isn't your place anymore." Derek's eyes flashed with anger. "You think you can just come in here and take her away from me? She's mine." Adrenaline was pumping in Sebastian's blood. You've hurt her. She's better than that." "I'm gonna make you pay for this, old man." Derek spat, another menacing step forward. Sebastian's heartbeat quickened with the threat hanging in the air. "You shall leave her alone. This ends now." Everything spiraled at that moment. Derek lunged at Sebastian. Abigail stepped between them. "Stop! Please, just stop!" she screamed, desperation in her voice. Chaos descended, and with it came a more profound wave of loss that washed over Sebastian. They had come thus far, and the darkness of their past so swiftly enveloped them once more. As chaos brewed, Abigail reached for her phone. "I'm calling the police," she shouted, her voice trembling. Derek seemed to teeter between two decisions for a while, his face red with anger, his eyes flashing. However, he only retreated backward, without giving first way to the glare that foretold more pains. "You'll regret this," Derek snarled as he stormed out. Derek attacked Abigail and her father, engaging in a physical fight with him. Her father did everything he could to hold Derek off until the police arrived, hitting him back as he yelled, "You want to take my daughter away from me? You're a sick psychopath who attacked my daughter, and now you're saying she shouldn't see her father just because I've been absent for 8 years, and now I'm excluded from the inheritance? So now I'm not a father anymore? What kind of animal are you?" It was a genuinely poignant moment as Sebastian and Abigail stood together, tears running down her face. "I'm so scared, Dad," she whispered. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly. "You're safe now. We'll get through this together." Derek, battered and beaten by Sebastian, lay lifeless on the ground. Abigail was crying in her father's arms, saying, "I had no idea how wild and animalistic that bastard was. He doesn't deserve to be with me. I need to get away from him as soon as possible." Sebastian had waited for the rescue to arrive, yet despaired. They had survived the storm, but its aftermath still hung over them like a dark cloud. At what point would they finally be able to heal Derek's wounds? The siren would softly murmur to one another about their futures. The voices would fill the air. Sebastian knew this was the beginning of a long road back to recovery. They would face them, but together the wounds of the past would still be there. In the end, Sebastian felt love might be a blessing or a curse. They found their way back to each other, but the road ahead was uncertain. As police came and took their statements, Sebastian cuddled Abigail close, promising to shield her from the shadows of the past. But at the bottom of his heart, he knew that healing would take some time, and the journey to peace would be long and arduous. No easy road lay ahead. And coming out into the light of a new day, the burden of their shared history was still long-lasting, uninvited guests, reminding them that some battles were fought not on open fields, but inside the heart.